Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time it is for you. First vlog of the website, and first thing I want to talk about is number one. Step number one is seeing your anxiety a little bit differently than you probably have looked at it before, which is seeing it as a habit. What I mean by that is not that you even probably realize, but changing your way you look at your anxiety and how you define it will help you overcome it. So over the years with my anxiety, I have done a lot of, oh gosh, what's the word? See, first video, a little nervous, not quite sure what I'm doing. Actually, I do know what I'm doing. It's weird to put it on a video as opposed to talking individually with clients that I have and stuff like that. Depending on your type of anxiety, for me, my biggest thing at the worst case of it was complete agoraphobia, which means I was basically afraid of everything. I couldn't leave my house or do anything alone because I didn't trust myself to handle the situation or if everything was going to be okay and whatnot. And so in the last couple of years, one thing I realized, was kind of brought to me. I've done a lot of reading and I've heard a lot of people talk about how you view your anxiety and all this kind of stuff. One thing I realized through, I want to say, there's a motivational speaker out there. Her name is Mel. It's not Mel Brooks, right? No. Anyways, she does great motivational things and getting you past your anxiety. But I was listening to one of her books, and one of the things she said was, you have this habit of being afraid of this or not doing this. And I kind of went a little deeper with that. And I was like, how is my anxiety a habit? What does that mean and everything? And so I started kind of digging into it and thinking about what I do in lieu of avoidance. So when you become agoraphobic, the reason you've become agoraphobic is because you have managed to avoid anything that causes you anxiety. Okay, so my original stemming off, so to say. I mean, I've had anxiety all my life. I can go back. I'm not sure how old I was. I want to say I was like 10 or 11 or even 9. My first memory, which in my blog we'll get into my memory and how it doesn't quite work all that well. My first memory of panic was it was Easter Sunday, and my family was still together. I don't know if my dad was there or not, but church-going folk go to church on Sunday, and especially Easter Sunday, because that's when everybody goes, right? Which was probably one of those situations in our household. But I didn't want to go. And this was back in the 80s. So there was, this is going to sound funny, but I want to be honest here, and I want you to be able to relate to me. I'm pretty relatable, and I'm also honest about the funny things, but in a 9-year-old's brain, this was big. So this was back in the days of Reagan, Cold War, all that kind of stuff. And as a 9-year-old child in my brain, and I can remember this so plainly, which is really odd because I don't have a lot of memories from 11 down, but the first real panic that I ever remember feeling was this Sunday, Easter Sunday, and everybody was gone. I was left home alone that time. 9, I think I was. 10, that was normal. I mean, I don't even know how young I was when I was left home. But this particular Sunday, I don't remember what I was watching on TV, but everybody was gone. I didn't go to church. Something came on and said somewhere in there, it was like the Russians are coming. Okay, so in my brain, as a little 9-year-old Christian girl who understands the, birth, death, burial, resurrection of Christ, was like, oh my gosh, it's Easter Sunday, Christ is risen, and he's coming back to take us. And I didn't want to go yet. I wasn't ready to go yet, apparently. But the Russians were coming, so this was how it was going to end. And I remember going into just an utter freak out. Like, I honestly thought that Jesus's coming was coming was the Russians coming, and we were going to be in a war, and everybody was going to die, and I don't even know how. I just went to this horrible place as a 9-10-year-old girl. And after a while, I don't know if they came home or what happened. I just remember that, and remember that state of panic and that feeling. And after that, time went on. I mean, that was just my first recollection of anxiety in my life. As time went on, there were other times during my life as a teenager and whatnot that there were times where I had panic, and it was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And fear of missing out, which was a big thing. But the kickoff event that took place for me, which led to acute agoraphobia, was I want to say I was probably 17 or 18. At that time in my life, I didn't intend to, but I had become anorexic. And I'm just like letting you all in right now. I'm just opening this up, so don't judge me. Again, just trying to be honest, there is a point to this. So if you'll just bear with me. I just want you to understand how we get into a habit of fear. So like I said, 17, 18, I had become anorexic, didn't plan on it, didn't even realize it. I had just lost a lot of weight. I never really thought I was in a relationship. It was all woohoo and crazy too, not all that great. Now that when I think back of it, I go, wow, that was really not a healthy relationship, but whatever, 4 years later. Anywho, so I worked, at the time I lived down in the Bay Area, California, and I worked in a florist shop and doing data entry and whatnot. FYI, you'd never want to work at a florist during Mother's Day. That is a nightmare. Anywho, I worked there doing data entry. And one day I happened to just really start feeling really bad, and I got really shaky, and I thought I was going to throw up. Now this was about a 45-minute drive home from where I worked in the Bay Area in traffic. So I wasn't feeling very well. They had me go lay on the couch. Eventually I was like, I'm just gonna go home. Something's not right. And I wanted to get home because home was where I could either just rest and everything would be fine, or, I could go to the doctor or whatever. But I was really feeling bad. So I proceeded to leave. And as I was leaving, just feeling horrible, I get on the freeway. I'm driving home. I'm on 101 in rush hour traffic, and I'm totally breaking all the rules. I need to get home because it's getting worse. And what I didn't realize was that it was panic coming on because I didn't know what was happening. And I was hyperventilating. Well, as that's happening, I decide, okay, I'm getting in the carpool lane. There was nobody else in my car. Well, Jesus was there, but we'll get to that later. And I was driving the carpool lane, just trying to get home as quick as I could. And I start noticing, like, I'm passing out. I'm passing out, and I'm waking up back at the wheel, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And it's happening so fast, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. I'm going to kill somebody. This is traffic. That's where I believe Jesus took over and literally took the wheel, because I don't know how I didn't hurt anybody or run into the side or anything like that. But anyways, there's an exit, and at the time, my boyfriend at the time, he no longer worked at this business, but right off that exit, not far, was a place that he used to work. And I managed to get all the way over and get off, and I go to this work that he used to work at. They knew me because I been there with him when he was working or whatever, for whatever reason. And I go in there and I said, I'm sorry. This was before cell phones, really. So I said, I'm sorry. I'm not doing well. I feel really sick. Can I use your phone? I need to call somebody to come get me. Oh, sure. And so I call my boyfriend at the time, and I'm like, you need to come get me. I'm like passing out on the road. Here's where I am. And he's like, okay, I'll be there. So from that moment, like, I'll never forget that feeling. I mean, talk about out of control. Talk about, like, I should not have been driving. I didn't know. But praise God for being there, because I didn't hurt anybody. So as I'm waiting, the nice, lovely lady, who I cannot remember her name, proceeds to give me some chocolate kisses and some Oreos and says, why don't you just go sit in the dark room, relax, we'll let him know when you're here, or let him let you know when he gets here. Okay, great. So I eat some chocolate and more chocolate, and I'm just sitting there and I'm just trying to calm down, because at that point I am shaking like a leaf, I'm crying, I'm just so overwhelmed. And he comes, he gets me. In about 25 minutes, I feel fine. And I'm like, I don't know what happened. And I get home, and I felt fine. However, in my brain, that was the scariest thing I'd ever experienced, right? At that time, by that time. And little did I know that my brain was doing its own thing to protect me from ever feeling that way, because it wasn't a good feeling at all. And so from that day on, I literally didn't trust myself anymore. I didn't feel like I was going to be okay. I think, honestly, looking back, I even created panic and anxiety in my life based on my feelings, like physiological feelings, that would turn into a big full-blown panic attack. And so this was like really crazy. Anxiety was not talked about at this time, at least not in my life. I think somebody might be coming in. Hopefully they don't. And hopefully we can edit that out if they do. Anyways, so fast forward all these years later, I'm talking about this now. From that moment, and I believe this was the real kickoff to my agoraphobia, because eventually I started to avoid. I didn't want to go back to work. I didn't want to drive that far. I didn't want to do anything, because I was afraid that was going to happen again. Now, as we fast forward through this, looking back, I can tell you what had actually happened to me, besides the hyperventilating panic part, which is actually quite normal when your blood sugars drop. So my anorexia, somebody's calling me and it's on mute, so that's good. My anorexia led to hypoglycemia. And so what I didn't realize at the time had happened was, like typical, I hadn't eaten for God knows how many days, but I was drinking soda, right? Because soda keeps me awake. At that time, I didn't drink coffee. We didn't have coffee shops like we have now. It was barbaric times, right? Which was probably, what, 92 or 93? 1992 or 93. Anyway, so what had happened was my blood sugar levels went up while I was at work, and then just rapidly declined to nothing. And that's why all of a sudden I was sweating. I couldn't keep my eyes open. I couldn't do anything. And then from that, when you start having these physiological actions, because your blood sugar is dropping, your body goes in protection mode and starts taking all your blood to your chest, to your heart, to your organs, leaving your hands shaky and numb. And then you start to focus on those, what's going on? I can't control this kind of thing. And that's what happened. So even though eventually I found out that was the cause, it didn't change the fact that somewhere in my head, in my brain, my parts or whatever decided we don't want no part of that. So I created habits of avoiding anything that made me uncomfortable, anything that made me feel like I was going to have another panic attack or be out of control. I wouldn't say it's needless to say, but I've learned, I've overcome my anorexia, I've overcome my hypoglycemia through a lot of seeking knowledge and understanding about my body and things like that. I've come to learn a lot about anxiety, anorexia, hypoglycemia, all these things that I didn't probably even think I needed to know at 17 or 18 years old, but I did. And I've learned a lot about it. And so with agoraphobia, where I started these habits of, hell no, if I'm not with somebody, I'm not doing these things, I began to make fear a habit. So instead of, even because at some points I would have panic and anxiety even with people, while I was with people, which I understand now to be a whole other thing that we'll get into. You'll probably read about it in my blog and whatnot. But for this situation, I want to get into the habit part. So I realized after hearing this lady speak, Robbins, that's her name, Mel Robbins. Anyway, she's got some great books, a lot of insightful thing. But for me, something that she said really clicked, the whole habit thing. I needed to look into that, because if I can, I've learned over the years, if I can find out more about how the brain works and what's happening, I can kind of justify it in my head and with my anxiety and kind of put a reality on it for me and make it work. And so that's what I did with habits. I have had a habit of avoiding anything that made me uncomfortable, which led even to the point of my anxiety was so peaked. I wasn't doing anything. The only time I'd go out was with somebody. I struggled to walk to the mailbox. Going out my front door, walking to the end of the little walkway where the steps went up for another apartment, scared the life out of me, and I just wanted to avoid it. And I've come to realize that was a habit. I have a habit of avoiding. I have a habit of fear. I'm a grown woman now. I have children. I have responsibilities. I have a life. I've learned all these things. I don't need to stay in that habit. I am healthy. There's nothing wrong with me now. There's things wrong with me, but there's nothing wrong with me physically. I've overcome the anorexia and the hypoglycemia. Therefore, really, I should be able to do what I was doing before or need to do now. And so I'm hoping I'm making this clear. It's really, let's just get into the other part of it. Once I realized I have a habit of avoiding anything that made me say what if was the reason I wasn't doing. And so now what I've learned to do is I've changed that habit. I've realized and accepted that it's a habit. But just like with drinking or smoking or anything like any of those habits, when you start the process of overcoming them or quitting them, you typically put in a new habit. Sometimes it's like if you're quitting drinking, which I quit drinking because of the anorexia, because the alcohol was causing sugar spikes as well. I quit smoking, blah, 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 blah. So I quit, and I've overcome a lot of those things. It was like you quit one, and you usually put something else in. So like a drinker, somebody who was an alcoholic, would probably put in smoking, right? You quit one habit, bring in another one. Sometimes the other habits are just as bad, if not worse, than the one that you're trying to overcome. But, or some of them can be healthy. Some people that want to quit smoking decide they just go headlong into physical activity. And next thing you know, there's some magical marathon runner and, doing the Boston and the New York marathons and stuff like that, which is fantastic, which is great. But you also have to deal with the issue, which was, for me, the habit of anxiety. And so, for me, I needed to replace the habit with reality, with conversations with myself about, you know, for example, it goes all the way back, or not all the way back, but as simple as I need to go to the grocery store to get some groceries. My kids are all away at school or doing their thing, and I need to go. I should be able to walk out my front door, jump in my car, and go to the grocery store. But in my head, I still have the habit of, what if this happens? What if this happens? What, you can't control this, you can't do this, da, 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 da. Like the whole anticipatory anxiety just goes out the window. What I started to do back over a year ago was be like, okay, talking to myself. People are probably driving by me thinking I'm on the phone, but I'm not. I'm literally talking to myself. As I'm walking out the front door, I'm like, look, here's the deal, Beth. You have a habit of fearing going to the store for whatever reason. Usually I go into that. But this is a habit. I'm going to get over this habit. I want to replace this habit with something else. I am a grown adult. I am a healthy adult. There's nothing physiologically going on in me right now that would create any kind of panic or whatnot. And I literally talk to myself like that. And that has made such a big difference. Now, I realize that might seem crazy to some of you, which is fine. But for those of you who have anxiety and understand what I'm saying, you're going to get this. I literally told myself, I am not going to let this habit own me. Fear is not the boss of me. I am a believer in Jesus Christ. Therefore, fear is not really, shouldn't be here anyways. However, the Lord knows me, created me, understands, has been there with me. So there's a dialogue constantly going on. I needed something else though. So just talking to myself, explaining to myself, oh, this is just a habit, and this is the habit that we're working on overcoming. I needed something else. So I needed a new habit to put in there, but I wanted it to be healthy, and I literally just realized, and this is where I might lose some of you, and that's okay, but I needed to make Jesus my new habit. Bye, if some of you leave, I'm sorry, but that's the fact of the matter for me, is that I didn't want to start smoking. I didn't want to take some kind of Valium or whatever medication. I wanted to move forward. I want to understand my issue, and I want the one person that I know, no matter what, I can count on to show up, to bring me peace, to bring me understanding, and to get all my parts in here, all these things which you'll read about in my blog, together on one page. I needed to make trusting Jesus my new habit, and that's what I have been working on for over a year now, but for forever really, and truly understanding what trusting Jesus means. So with that being said, I wrote down, so I basically trusting Jesus. In order to trust him, you have to know him, you have to learn about who he is and what he does and that whole thing. So I've been a Christian all my life since I was 7. I accepted Jesus when I was 7, and at that time I knew who, what, when, why, and where. I understood it at a 7-year-old's level that a 7-year-old can understand. As I got older in life, I recommitted my life to serving the Lord and building an intimate relationship with the Lord and knowing him on a personal level, as opposed to God the Father, God the Son, the Holy Spirit, right? I knew it biblically. I knew it in the Bible sense. But I needed to have a personal relationship with the Lord, learn to trust him, which is what I have spent the last 20 years doing. And I want to share something with you. So, wow, this has actually gone on quite longer than I expected for the first vlog, but greetings. It's how you're going to get to know me, I guess, and trust me, and trust that maybe I know what I'm talking about, or that the Lord does work in miraculous ways. So I do a devotional every morning. I use this great book called Jesus Calling. It's kind of backwards in the video, but I've been using this book. I think I got this one in 2012. It's fantastic. It seems like it just doesn't fail me. The Lord speaks to me. I mean, y'all could be having 100 different days going on, but when you open it and you read it, it's like so specific to what you're going through and what you need to hear. And so the other day, I had gotten a day ahead with this whole coronavirus thing going on. I'm no longer working. I had to close my shop temporarily, and my days are mixed up. Like, I don't know one day from the other. My husband, his schedule changed too due to it, and he has an extra day off. Well, that just changes everything because my studio is attached to my home, so I'm always home for the most part. I literally have to make myself break down my errands that I need to do so that I have more reasons to leave. That's when I'm working. However, I'm not working right now. But anyways, I didn't know what day it was. Somehow I got a day ahead in my devotional. So I had already read March 31st on the 30th. And so you're getting this video like a day or two later, but it still makes sense. So anyway, so I was just saying to the Lord that my first prayer before I opened the book was, Lord, I'm a day ahead. So I don't want to start April a day on March 31st. That's just weird to me. So I said, I'm just going to open up to whatever page, and I just pray that you let it speak to me or make any kind of sense to me, and I'll know it. Just let me receive it. So I literally opened to January 4th. It's just where it fell open. Strange enough. I have my little notes on here because I read it and was just like, oh, this is perfect. Because the night before, when I was going to bed, which I even wrote in my journal, when I went to sleep, I had asked the Lord to show me where to start in this blog and where with this page, because I've just set up it. I don't know what I'm doing. My daughter's helping me with everything, and I didn't know where to start. So I had prayed, and I even have this written down in my journal, that let me know and make me aware of where I need to start this. He always provides an answer to me. I just ask that he give me the ears to hear what he wants me to hear and the eyes to see what he wants me to see. And it's as simple as that. So I flip open to January 4th, and on that page, there's, in my years of having this book, I have multiple notes on any given page of either what was going on, whose birthday it was, who got elected, all these things, right? So it was weird though. On this day, January 4th, there was absolutely nothing written on this. So I don't know, sometimes every day I use this book. Sometimes I skip a day or I miss a day because whatever happened, life happened, somebody woke up sick and blah, blah, blah. Once I start my day with work, it's really hard to go back and, let me do my devotional now. So for whatever reason, no writing on this page. And I want to read to you what is written. And then, of course, that day, I wrote notes on this page as well as wrote in my journal about what it means and just the understanding. And so much of what I've already said is written here, so I'm not going to read you that. But I want to read you what it says. And I hope that as in the future, as I go through these blogs and make more videos, that devotion is going to be part of that, because that's where I prepared my heart to hear from the Lord, and I believe he will, throughout that day or whatever, I just look for the ways and the places where he meets me, or I get insight from something, and I'm just so grateful that he, even though I am all kind of messed up, not messed up like a beautiful mess that my friend says, I've been a bad person, I've done things, but the Lord, he loves me and he has forgiven me. And even though I wouldn't think that I would be somebody he would want to use just because of my past, he uses that. I've kind of come to say, it's like anxiety is like the thorn in my side. You know, Paul had his thorn, which is he had persecuted Christians, and then was bringing people to know, you know, share the gospel with people. So to me, it's kind of been my thorn. I see how the Lord has used it in my life to help others that either don't understand it or whatnot. But anywho, enough about that. If I give you everything, I got no more videos to make, right? So I'm just grateful that he uses me, even though I wouldn't be my first choice. So I'm going to read to you what it says that day. And again, this is in the Jesus Calling book. Fantastic. If you need a devotional, it's 365 days, one for every day. It's not difficult to read, although sometimes it's like the Lord is speaking right to you. The way she's written it is just amazing. It's sometimes, though, depending on the level of your relationship with the Lord, some of it can be confusing. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, I literally have to go back and look up a definition of a word and make it make sense to me. Like, I have to clarify, because I'm not an educated woman, a highly educated woman, but I have life experience, and because of life experiences, it's harder to understand certain things when you have a perspective from what you went through of certain things. So anyways, we'll get into that later, but here we go. It says, I want you to learn a new habit. This is literally the first thing that I'm reading that morning. Try saying, I trust you, Jesus, in response to whatever happens to you. If there's time, think about who I am in all my power and glory. Ponder also the depth and breadth of my love for you. Seriously? This is what I'm reading. This simple practice will help you see me in every situation, acknowledging my sovereign control over the universe. When you view events from this perspective, through the light of my universal presence, fear loses its grip on you. Adverse circumstances become growth opportunities when you affirm your trust in me no matter what. You receive blessings gratefully, realizing they flow directly from my hand of grace. Your continual assertion of trusting me will strengthen your relationship and keep you close to me. This is like the epitome of what I've been talking about. Changing and replacing my habit of fear with the Lord has made a big difference. Now, I still have, there's certain things like this whole coronavirus thing. You know, I still get anxious, I get nervous, and then I have to just go, wait a minute. Who am I trusting? Am I trusting in, am I not trusting, period? I mean, if I truly am a Christian and truly with all my heart believed, which I think I do, but I'm still human, so my human nature says, oh my gosh, what can I do? Everything's out of control. We would realize we have so much more power. Like, we wouldn't be afraid of anything if we actually know who Jesus is and all that it stands for. But we're flawed, we're human, we think other thoughts, there's so much going on around us that it's just hard. But I just thought it was funny because the night before I'd asked, I'm like, give me something, how do I start this? And boom, this is it. And honestly, it was the words here that made me realize that was the first step. The first step in overcoming my anxiety and getting a grip on it and learning more was changing that one habit of fear to trusting Jesus. So I don't want to take too much more of your time because I don't know how much time you have. Although with this coronavirus, being stuck at home and playing safe, not leaving, I have a lot more time on my hands. So I just want to give you that thought for today is to, if you are struggling with anxiety, if you don't know the Lord, please, you can sign up for emails on this website. There should have been like a landing page. I don't know. I'm learning all this stuff. Or you could put your emails in and you can send me emails. I've got time to read. Let me know what you're struggling with, and maybe I can give you more insight into what that looks like. If you don't know the Lord, let me know about that too, because, maybe this is that call to where, maybe not right now, you're not ready for it, but the Lord's using all of us, I think, in his own way. So think about that. Think about what habits you have that you can visualize and understand when it comes to your anxiety, and see if trusting the Lord would give you some kind of better understanding. And so if you're in a situation where, you're like me, where you were afraid to leave your house, what would trusting Jesus look like as opposed to the fear of what if? Think about that. Let me know. Tell me where you're at in your anxiety and stuff like that, because this is kind of what I do for a living, is I meet with mostly women on a day-to-day basis, and I get to talk with them, and I'm more of a personal interaction, so this whole video thing is weird to me. Like, this is a conversation I would have with a client, not with a video screen. Like, I don't even know where I'm looking, to be honest with you. I'm trying to look at this little thing up here. Maybe I need to put a sticker up there with a face on it or something. But I just want to be able to help in any way I can. If you're confused or whatever, send me an email. I got the time. I'll make the time. So let's see. I think I'm going to end that there because it's been almost 40 minutes. Please let me know if this is too much time and I can talk faster or make it shorter. And we'll go from there. But let's start with habit. The first step by step is we got to change the habit. If Jesus ain't your thing, hopefully by the end of this he will be. No, I'm kidding. It's okay. There are other things I'm sure you can use finding another clarifying way to change that habit. I can help you with that. But I want to thank you again for listening, and I hope this has helped you in some way or given you some kind of insight. If you sign up for the emails, you'll get notified every time I post a video, and I hope to start to communicate with you and enjoy the readings as I post them. Be gentle with me. There's a lot of vulnerability in that, but it's what I gotta do now, I guess. So have a great rest of your day, and God bless. Be the light.